I just built a ridiculous deck with a commander ranked number 2,255 on EDHREC, and the market value of the entire list is just over $18. Oh, and this is what the mana curve looks like. The commanders are Galanra, Caller of Wirewood, and Elena, Kessig Trapper, which currently helm just 160 decks according to EDHREC. At first I built it with a $100 budget like I normally do, but after some goldfishing I realized it almost didn't matter what creatures were actually in the deck. So I decided to see just how cheap I could go, and I got it down to a list that would cost just $18.45 on TCG Player. This is a deck that you could almost build entirely out of unplayable bulk, and that's exactly what I decided to do. I hit up my playgroup to ask if they had any of the jank that I was looking for, and some of them pulled specific cards for me, some of them let me come over and just dig through their bulk boxes, and I put together a good chunk of the deck just from their unwanted cards. After that, I went to my LGS to pick up some of the essential missing pieces, and then, when I met up with my friends to play, I offered to buy them a few drinks just to thank them for the cards, so the actual total cost of the deck was about $12 and a couple beers. The idea behind the deck was simple. Take advantage of the most broken mechanic in Commander, which is the Commander. It's essentially an 8th card that you always have access to right when you need it. And with partners, now you have a 9th card that you always have access to right when you need it. A while back when I was really getting into Commander, I did a Scryfall search and read through just about every legendary creature that offers some form of ramp. If the current recommendation is to play 10 ramp spells in a Commander deck, well, if I just make my commander a ramp spell that I always have access to on curve, then that frees up 10 slots in my deck for more gas. The thought behind running 10 ramp spells is that it gives you a pretty good chance of drawing one early in the game when you actually need it. But top decking a 3-mana ramp spell in the late game just isn't going to have the same impact as it would on turn 3. So if I put my 3-mana ramp spell in the command zone, I always have access to it on curve, and I never have to worry about it getting in the way later. So after making a list of interesting ramp commanders, I decided on Galanra and Elena because they give me access to 2 ramp spells that curve into each other and provide a repeated source of card advantage. These 2 cards are literally the entire engine, and the rest of the deck is all gas. Okay, here's the deck. Honestly, I'm so happy to have a deck that I can just run completely sleeveless. It feels like such a power move to sit down at the table and just raw dog your cards in front of everyone. Anyway, let me get this split up into categories like I normally do. If you just look at it right here, you're gonna notice something right away. Almost everything in this deck costs at least 6 mana. And on top of that, everything in this deck that isn't a land is a creature. The reason for that is because it enables this engine. Galanra, Caller of Wirewood says, tap, add green. When you spend this mana to cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, draw a card. So basically everything you cast, if you use Galanra to cast it, is going to draw you a card. Our other commander, Elena, Kessig Trapper, says, first strike, that doesn't matter. Tap, add an amount of red mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control that entered the battlefield this turn. So the plan is really, really simple. Turn 1, turn 2, you kind of do nothing. Turn 3, you cast Galanra. Turn 4, with Galanra's 1 mana of ramp, you cast Elena. And then from turn 5 onwards, it's just non-stop. All gas, 6 mana, 6 power creatures for the rest of the game. Or until someone blows up your engine. But look, this is very much a battlecruiser deck that takes advantage of the mid-range heavy metagame of casual Commander. Most people spend early turns ramping and building engines, and this deck is no different. Honestly, it kind of relies on the fact that most players will leave you alone and spend their resources setting up their own game plan in the early game. It's a deck to bring out when you don't want to think too hard and you just want to smash face with big, dumb creatures. The deck really relies on the consistency of having these 2 in the command zone because you know exactly what you're going to do on turns 1 through 4. Turns 1 through 4, you build your engine, and then you hit the gas. So let's talk about the gas. In almost all of these categories, you're going to find mostly 6 mana creatures that have 6 power, and that just enables this engine. So basically the idea is you use 6 mana to cast one of your 6 mana creatures, and that lets you draw a card. Now, once you've had a 6 power creature enter the battlefield, Elena also makes 6 red mana, and now you can cast another 6 mana creature on the same turn. So basically every turn wants to go, Gallanra casts a 6 mana creature, Elena casts a 6 mana creature. And I think one of the most beautiful things about this deck is that you could just fill it with whatever 6 mana, 6 power creatures you can find. That's literally what I did. So this deck list isn't exactly the same as the $18.45 list that I put together initially, because it's really just like what I found in my bulk, what I found in my friend's bulk, and then a few things that I felt were important to actually making it all function together. But you could put any 6 mana, 6 power creatures in here, and it would really run just as well. Among your 6 mana, 6 power creatures though, there are some categories that you want to aim for, starting with more ramp. You want more ramp because you want to make sure if your engine gets blown up, if your commanders get removed, you still have a ton of extra mana. So this category is ramp. And occasionally, look, you are going to have to make some concessions on the power or the mana cost sometimes. So Savage Ventmaw, it's a 6 mana 4/4, but whenever it attacks, you add red, 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 green, green, green to your mana pool. That's enough mana to cast almost anything else in the deck. So commander gets blown up, but you have this in play, well, that's 6 free mana that you would be getting from Elena. Ulvenwald Hydra, its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Most of the time, that's going to be at least 6. It also tutors a land to the battlefield for you, so it just helps you add a little extra ramp. Rapacious one, it's a 6 mana 5/4. When it deals combat damage to a player, it makes Eldrazi spawns, just to give you a little extra mana. Oblivion Sower, 6 mana 5/8. You get to steal lands from your opponents with this one. Adds more lands to the battlefield. Shriekwood Devourer, 7 mana 7/5. You can also include a fair number of 7 mana creatures. You do need a critical mass of 6 mana creatures just to make sure you always have a 6 mana creature on turn 5 when you want to start going, but you can bump up to 7. You are going to have 7 mana on turn 6 most of the time. Shriekwood Devourer says, whenever you attack with one or more creatures, untap up to X lands where X is the greatest power among those creatures. And most of those creatures are going to be at least 6 power, so you're untapping 6 lands every time you attack. Elvish Aberration is a 6 mana 4/5 that taps for 3 mana. It also goes in this pile. We'll talk about that one later. Realm Seekers is a 6 mana 0/0, but it enters with X +1/+1 counters, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. I cast this last night for 25. This came down as a 25/25 creature, and then Elena made 25 red mana to follow up. It also has the added ability of paying 2 and a green to remove a +1/+1 counter and search your library for a land and put it into your hand. So it just helps you hit more land drops, but also comes down at huge power most of the time. Regal Behemoth, 6 mana 5/5. When it enters, you become the Monarch, and if you're the Monarch, when you tap a land for mana, you add an additional mana of any color. It doubles your mana as long as you're the Monarch. The next category is card draw, and I mean, you would probably want more than this, but this is what I ended up with after my dumpster diving in my friend's cards. Earthshaker Dreadmaw, 6 mana 6/6. When it enters, draw a card for each dinosaur you control. There are a small number of dinosaurs in the deck. There's one. They're everywhere. So it'll draw you usually an extra card or 2. Ulvenwald Observer, 6 mana 6/6. Whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, draw a card. That's pretty much all your creatures. So killing anything, removing any of your creatures will draw you a card. Soul of the Harvest, this is the most expensive card in the deck at $1. 6 mana 6/6, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. And this is an effect that you want to look for if you want to, I think if you want to increase the power of the deck. More of these, something like a Beast Whisperer, Garruk's Pack Leader, which we have down here, for example, anything that draws you a card when another creature enters is going to be amazing, because then not only are you drawing when you cast a card with Gallanra, you're drawing off everything that enters. So it's going to refill your hand even faster than you can get the creatures out of it. You will never run out of gas if you have enough of these type of effects. There's an ant in my cards. Come on, I know I built the deck out of trash, but like, I'm going to jump over this one and we're going to go straight to this category, because you might be thinking, well, if I'm playing all 6 mana beaters, that doesn't leave a lot of room for interaction. But every single card in this pile is a 6 mana beater with some sort of interaction stapled on. Soul of Chandalar, for example, 6 mana 6/6, but for 5 mana, it can deal 3 damage to target player and 3 damage to up to 1 target creature that player controls. It's a good mana sink for Elena when you don't have a creature or you don't want to cast another creature with the mana that Elena makes. You can put it into that, get a little bit of removal out of it. Nessian Wild's Ravager, 6 mana 6/6 with Tribute 6, so when it enters, an opponent can put 6 +1/+1 counters on it, making it a 12/12. If they don't, then it's going to fight another target creature. So it either comes down and fights something, or it comes down as a 12/12, and then Elena makes 12 mana, and you can maybe cast 2 creatures that turn. Stormkeld Vanguard, it's a 6 mana 6/7, but it also has an adventure, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Combustible Gear Hulk, 6 mana 6/6. When it enters, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If they don't, mill 3 cards, then it deals damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. I guess that's not actually interaction, but it is a great card in the deck because the options are either let you draw 3 cards, or they take damage equal to the mana value of what you mill, and everything in the deck costs 6 or more. So of course, sometimes you're going to hit lands, but if you hit 1 card, they take 6 damage. If you hit 2 cards, they take 12 damage. If you hit 3 cards, they're taking 18 damage. And a lot of times, it's not going to be worth the risk, so you're just going to draw 3 cards off of this. Incinerator of the Guilty is a 6 mana 6/6. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can collect evidence X. When you do, it deals X damage to each creature and each planeswalker that player controls. Collect evidence X is easy when everything in your graveyard is going to be at least 6 mana. You're going to be able to easily deal at least 6 damage to everything a player controls. Inferno Titan, it's a 6 mana 6/6. When it enters, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. So a little bit of incidental removal when it comes down, plus a mana sink for Elena if you can get in with a big attack. Burning Sun's Avatar kind of does the same thing. When it enters, 3 damage to 1 opponent and up to 1 target creature. Stalking Vengeance, 7 mana 5/5. When another creature you control is put into the graveyard from play, it deals damage equal to its power to target player. So every creature dying now triggers damage to a player. Horde Smelter Dragon, 6 mana 5/5. For 4 mana you can destroy an artifact, and then it gets +X/+O, where X is that artifact's mana value. Also another mana sink for Elena. Drakaseth, Maw of Flames, 7 mana 7/7. When it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. That's a lot of damage going around whenever this attacks. Tyrant of Discord, 7 mana 7/7. Target opponent chooses a permanent he or she controls at random and sacrifices it. If a non-land permanent is sacrificed this way, repeat this process. So this will just come down and blow something up randomly. Could be a land, could be a non-land, and it'll go again if it's a non-land. Mordant Dragon, 6 mana 5/5, has a mana sink for Elena, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can have it deal that much damage to target creature that player controls. Rurik Thar, it's a 6 mana 6/6, and whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, it deals 6 damage to that player. Everything in this deck is creatures, so you don't have to worry about ever taking that damage, but this will hold your opponents back from casting stuff until they can remove it. Dragon Lord Atarka, 7 mana 8/8. When it enters, it deals 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. Flame Blast Dragon has another mana sink. When it attacks, you can pay X and a red. If you do, it deals that much damage to target creature or player. If you've cast a 6 mana creature or a 6 power creature, you can tap Elena for 5 and a red and just blow something up with 5 damage. Gruul Rage Beast says, whenever Gruul Rage Beast or another creature enters under your control, that creature fights target creature and opponent controls. So this just turns every single one of your creatures into a fight spell. And most of the time, your creatures are going to be bigger than your opponent's creatures. So having this on the board means every creature becomes a removal spell. Myojin of Roaring Blades, 8 mana 7/4, enters with an indestructible counter. When you remove that indestructible counter, it'll deal 7 damage to each of up to 3 targets. You could just end the game with this once life totals are low enough, but this will blow up a ton of creatures too. Cleanup Crew, 6 mana 6/6. When it enters, it destroys an artifact or an enchantment. You can exile a card from a graveyard or gain 4 life, but let's be real, you're probably gonna blow something up with it. So even in a deck full of creatures, you have a lot of ways to interact with your opponent's board, and honestly, there's even more. Like, there are so many big creatures that have damage abilities stapled onto them like this. you could add even more than this in your version of the deck. All right, let's go to this category next. It's protection. The deck does rely pretty heavily, completely, on the commanders. So you do want a way to protect your creatures, but honestly, I almost think that just playing more ramp might be more important. If you can just ramp so much that it doesn't matter if you have your commanders out, then you don't really need to try too hard to protect them. But let's talk about the protection pieces I have anyway. Dawnglade Regent, 7 mana, 8/8. When it enters, you become the Monarch, and as long as you're the Monarch, permanents you control have hexproof. Spearbreaker Behemoth, it's a 7 mana, 5/5 with Indestructible, and for 1 mana, target creature with power 5 or greater gains Indestructible until end of turn. Won't actually protect your commanders, but can protect basically anything else in the deck. Soul of New Phyrexia, 6 mana, 6/6. For 5 mana, permanents you control gain Indestructible until end of turn. That one will protect your commanders. Emissary of Grudges, 6 mana, 6/5. When it enters, secretly choose an opponent, and you can reveal the player to choose new targets for a spell or ability if it's controlled by that chosen player. So basically it offers you a one-time shunt from a specific player. You can just secretly choose the player you think has the most interaction. When they go to blow up one of your commanders, you just, surprise, I chose you, and then you get to deflecting swat that spell or ability, basically. Dread Lindnorm, it's a 7 mana, 7 power creature, but the adventure side says, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature and untap it. It gains hexproof until end of turn. That can protect your commanders. It can also help them make twice as much mana in a turn. All right, now let's go back to this category, which is kind of just like generic beaters, if I can get them picked up here. This is just big dumb creatures that do big dumb things. Thunderfoot Bailiff, 6 mana, 5/5, but as long as you control your commander, it and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and have trample. So you're gonna have your commander out. It's basically a 6 mana, 7/7 with a permanent overrun for your entire board. Cyclops of Eternal Fury, 6 mana, 5/3, gives all your creatures haste. Galta, it's a 12 mana, 12/12, but as long as you have one other creature on the board, its mana cost is going to go down to 6. It could be as cheap as 2 pretty easily. A 2 mana 12/12 is going to help you play even more of your creatures. Atali Primal Storm, of course, 6 mana 6/6. We all know Atali. It attacks, you steal cards. It's free card advantage. Hydra Omnivore, 6 mana 8/8. Whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. And having creatures like this, 6 mana with more than 6 power, is going to help you cast some of the bigger stuff, anything that costs 7 or 8. I don't think I have anything higher than that though. But there are a lot of creatures that cost 6 mana and have more than 6 power, such as, Quake Strider Ceratops, 6 mana, 12/8. It's like a cost-reduced Galta permanently. Then we have Conclave Sledge Captain. It's a 6 mana 4/4 with 3 instances of backup 1. So if you really needed to, you could put 2 of those +1/+1 counters on this, and it's a 6 mana 6/6. But the backup ability gives a creature, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. It can just double the power of whatever you're attacking with. And then finally, Great Oak Guardian. It's a 6 mana 4/5, but when it enters, creatures target player controls get +2/+2 until end of turn and untap them. So it comes down as a 6 mana 6/7. It also has flash. If you need it in a pinch, you can do that for whatever reason. Just a quick mini overrun effect. Next, I want to talk about the few cards that cost less than 6 mana. These are the 3 5 mana cards, and there's a reason that they're in here. Garruk's Pack Leader says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters under your control, you may draw a card. Territory Color says whenever a land enters under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you can reveal it and put it into your hand. And Nikia of the Old Ways says you can't cast non-creature spells, which doesn't matter in this deck, and whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. So it doubles your mana. It's card advantage, and ramp. 3 pieces that cost 5 mana. They're good enough to include in the deck, but you can also hit them off of any of these, which are the Cascade spells. Trumpeting Carnosaur, 6 mana 7/6. When it enters, discover 5. Well, these are the only 3 cards that you can possibly hit with that. Sweetgum Recluse, it's a 6 mana creature with Cascade. These are the only 3 cards you can hit off of that. Boarding Party, 6 mana, 6 power, Cascade. Aurora Phoenix, 6 mana, 5 power, Cascade. It's 4 ways that are going to guarantee you hit one of these very impactful cards. Sweet Gum Recluse I almost didn't include because it's a 6 mana 0/3, so it wouldn't actually help Elena make mana, but it says when it enters, put 3+1/+1 counters on each of any number of target creatures that entered the battlefield this turn. So any of the 3 cards that you're going to hit when you cascade with it are going to come down as a 5/5, for example. Then you put 3+1/+1 counters on it. Now it's an 8/8, and now Elena's making 8 mana off of that. So don't be afraid of the fact that it has 0 power. It's still going to make a lot of mana for Elena. And there are definitely a lot of other cards that you can add to this package or swap into this package. I would focus on things that ramp, 5 mana ramp spells, or 5 mana or less card draw spells. Things like Elemental Bond, or Kavu Lair, or Garruk's Uprising. Cards that are going to help you draw cards whenever a creature enters. If you can guarantee that you're going to hit one of those off of any of these cascade spells, you have a pretty good chance of, number one, playing a 6 mana, 6 power creature, so you're still fueling the engine, and then also hitting one of those important card draw spells that's going to keep that engine running. All right, the last category of creatures here is just things with land cycling. So they're all 6 mana creatures that have some form of land cycling because you really, really, really want to hit your land drops. Elvish Aberration, forest cycling. Valley Granite, mountain cycling and forest cycling. Orchard Strider, basic land cycling. Mountain cycling, basic land cycling. Mountain cycling, forest cycling, forest cycling. If you have any of these in your opening hand, you basically want to cycle them on turn 2 just to have more lands in hand. You do not want to miss an early land drop in this deck. Plus, putting these in your graveyard means that you have fuel for this guy, Incinerator of the Guilty. You have something with a mana cost of 6 that you can investigate or collect evidence, whatever. Dude, the mechanics in this set were ridiculous. Collect evidence. They're in the graveyard already. It's easy. So yeah, this whole pile is just big creatures that help fuel the engine, but also help fuel the engine early. You always want to have lands. And speaking of lands, well, we run 38, 37 basics, all forests and mountains. Very cheap, very easy. And 4 utility lands. Mosswort Bridge and Spinerock Knoll are your only turn 1 plays in this deck, basically. They're 2 hideaway lands, so when it enters, look at the top 4 cards, exile 1 face down, and the requirements for casting your hideaway card are so easy to hit in this deck. For Mosswort Bridge, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. Just having 2 of your creatures on board means that you can play whatever you hid away for 1 green mana. Spinerock Knoll, you can play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn. Almost any of your creatures can deal 7 damage to a player, so these 2 make it really easy to cast whatever you've hidden away. Kessig Wolfrun is a mana sink. For X, red, green, target creature gets +X/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Sometimes you're going to have a lot of extra mana with Elena, and you can just dump it into making something even bigger and giving it trample. And then the last one, Diamond City, one of my favorite cards recently. It enters with a shield counter on it, and you can tap it to move the shield counter onto target creature, only if 2 or more creatures entered the battlefield under your control this turn. And honestly, every turn, 2 creatures should be entering the battlefield. So this just lets you put a shield counter on Galanra or Elena or whatever you want to protect. And that's it. That's it, but I do want to just go through a few more cards that I think could be interesting in the deck. Like I said, I tried to make the cheapest version of it. This is mostly cards that I got for free from my friends, but I pulled some stuff out of my collection that could be good. Uncivil Unrest was one I was considering. It's 5 mana, so you could hit it off your Cascade spells. It gives all your creatures Riot, and if a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. Traverse the Outlands would be a great ramp spell to hit at 5 mana. Search your library for up to X basic land cards where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So any one of your Cascade spells could hit this, and you're going to get probably at least 6 lands. And just putting 6 lands onto the battlefield means you're not as reliant on Galanra and Elena to keep the engine running. Beast Whisperer, just like I said, it's basically another version of Garrick's Pack Leader. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. It just costs like $2.50, so over budget for this deck. Horizon Stone I think could be interesting as another 5 mana ramp. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes colorless instead. So sometimes Elena's going to make more mana than you need. Sometimes you're going to get like 12 mana off of Elena, but you're only going to use 6 of it. That 6 can become colorless and you can just hold on to it. You can bank it for later on. You could also just make a bunch of mana with Elena and not cast anything, just to bank it for later. If you feel a board wipe coming, if you're afraid that someone's going to blow up all your stuff, you can just save your mana with Horizon Stone for later. Sire of Seven Deaths, I pulled this during Foundations pre-release. Just an example of like the insanely powerful cards that you could put in this deck if you really wanted to. A 7 mana 7/7 with a billion keywords would be pretty strong. Kogla, another card that's in my collection. It's another piece of interaction you could put in here. Like I said, there are so many 6 mana, 6+ power creatures that have some form of interaction on them. Steel Hellkite is another example, 6 mana 5/5. For X, you can destroy each permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite. And then there's just like, these are like all the other creatures that I pulled out of my friend's bulk or that they donated to me. Annoyed Altasaur, 7 mana 6/5 with Cascade. Maelstrom Colossus, 8 mana 7/7 with Cascade. These are just going to cascade into like any other thing in your deck. And when you can cascade knowing that you're going to hit a huge creature every time, it's pretty strong. There's really a lot of options for this deck. You could make it out of anything. Should I goldfish a game for you? Let's do it. I can't wait for this deck to look all scratched and crusty like my cards did when I was a kid. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you always want to have 3 lands in your opening hand. Oh wow, 5 lands is great, definitely keepable. So let's play. Draw for turn, play a land. Turn 2, draw for turn, play a land. We have a Seismic Monstrosaur we can cycle for another land, but since we already have 5 and that's my only red creature, I'm just going to keep it. So we'll go to turn 3, draw for turn, we'll play a land, tap 3, cast Galanra. Turn 4, we untap, draw, play a land. With 5 mana, we cast Elena, and now we're ready to hit the gas. Turn 5, we untap with both commanders in play, draw a card. Oh, beautiful. We're going to play a land for turn. With this, we'll make 6 mana, including Galanra, and we'll start it off with, let's do Sweet Gum Recluse. It's going to hit, it's going to cascade, and we're just going to flip until we find one of those 5 mana spells. Oh, I thought it would take longer. So, Territory Color enters the battlefield. We also get to draw a card off of Galanra's trigger, so I guess I put that on the stack under Cascade, so that'll be the card draw. And now, when it enters, we can put 3+1/+1 counters on each of any number of target creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. Both of these. So that's a 10-8, and that's a 3-6. I wish we had more to do with our mana, but we'll tap Elena for 10 red mana, and we'll use it to cast Combustible Gear Hulk. We can either draw 3 cards or mill and deal damage to an opponent. Let's just pretend the opponent says, do the damage to me. So we'll mill 1, 2, 3. We're dealing 11 damage to an opponent. Okay, not a bad turn to go from just these to this board. This deck has a huge turn 5 power spike. There it is. Turn 6, we're going to untap, draw for turn. We'll play a land. We have 6 lands now, so we'll tap 5 plus Galanra, and we're going to play Soul of the Harvest. It's a 6/6. It costs 6 with Galanra. We draw a card, and now we have Elena, which we can tap for 6 red mana and cast Seismic Monstrosaur. Did I play a land for turn? Oh, I missed my landfall trigger. All right, let's pretend it's happening now. We'll look at the top card. Oh, it's a creature card. Put it in the hand. I don't know, was it a land earlier? I don't remember. Either way, this is the board now. Turn 6. Oh, I missed another trigger. Whenever another creature enters, draw a card. We are refilling our hand faster than we can play it. Turn 7, we untap, we draw for turn. Wow, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll cast Realm Seekers. How many cards does everyone have in hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for me. Everyone has 3, 5, 4. Okay, so we have an 18/18 Realm Seekers that just entered the battlefield. We'll draw a card for that. We'll draw a card for that. And we'll tap Elena for 18 red mana, which we can't really use. If this was real and I wasn't trying to speed through it, I would have tapped differently and left these green ones up, because now we have 18 red plus 2 green, so we can at least cast Dread Lindnorm and Dragon Lord Atarka. And I mean, we can stop there, right? You can just see really how quickly the power level spikes as soon as you have both commanders on board. I mean, the engine literally fuels itself and it never stops. And while the deck is at its weakest in those first 4 turns where you're just setting up your engine, if your opponents don't interact with your commanders, if they choose to build their own engine, to set up their own game plan, which is usually what people want to do, by the time these two start going off, your board is just too big and they don't even know what to interact with. They don't even know which part to remove. Like, sure, kill one of the commanders, but we've already got a ton of lands and a ton of huge creatures. Kill one of the huge creatures, but there's still 7 more. I mean, the only answer is a board wipe at this point. I have honestly had a lot of fun playing this deck so far, and I think a big part of it is just the fact that it was so cheap. Like, you don't have to feel precious about your cards, you don't have to sleeve them up. It just feels like good old-fashioned Magic, the way I used to play when I was a kid. And I think my friends kind of felt that too, because the reviews for the deck were, well, pretty positive. Kind of a weird time to mention this because they're union busting right now, but I do have a TCG Player affiliate link now that you could use to support the channel. But honestly, if you do want to build this deck, I would encourage you to do it the way I did. Just build it from junk, hit up your friends, go to your LGS, look through bulk, look through just like unwanted cards and see what you can put together. And I mean, you'd be surprised at how much you can do with that. Because at the end of the day, this is just a really fun, casual commander deck. It does rely on the fact that people are going to leave your commanders alone in the early game and just take those first few turns to ramp and set up their own engines. And in that way, it is just a good fit for casual commander. And I kind of wanted to make a deck that emphasizes just how powerful partners can be, or even just having a commander when you can rely on your commander to essentially be an 8th card in hand that you have access to on curve every game exactly when you need it. That is a very powerful tool that you can use in deck building. And this is kind of the most extreme version of it, where these 2 cards are the only plays that I rely on every game, and the rest of the deck is just insane bulk that is surprisingly powerful for the cost. It's definitely a deck that I want to keep playing and tuning a little bit, and I think, like I said, I think the way to go for this is probably to take out some of the protection cards and add in more stuff that's going to ramp, things like Traverse the Outlands, because I think if you just ramp so much that it doesn't matter if you have your commanders online anymore, the deck just sort of becomes an inevitability. There aren't easy points to interact with it. If you have a ton of mana, you can just rebuild. Your hand is always full of creatures. Board wipes aren't going to slow you down that much. I think that philosophically, that's probably the most red-green way to approach the situation, is just take it on the chin, ramp a bunch, and keep going. So if you do end up building the deck, let me know in the comments what creatures you end up putting in it. Like I said, there are an infinite number of creatures that fit in this deck at any budget level. You have the bulk, the draft chaff that I built the deck with, all the way up to insanely powerful creatures who cost more as a single card than my entire deck list. And I think the deck would be fun regardless of what budget you're playing at. In the meantime, if you want to see more of my decks, check out this video here where I built another deck with a commander that no one plays, or check out this video where I went to Japan and built a deck list while I was searching card shops over there. Thanks for watching.